Welcome, everybody. One of the themes of Donald Trump's presidency that was very different from Joe Biden's presidency is that under Trump, we were increasingly at odds with our historical, liberally democratic Western allies. And Trump increasingly waxed poetic and had these sort of authoritarian wet dreams about dictators and authoritarian strongmen around the world. Rather than maintaining a historically good relationship with Canada and the United Kingdom and France and Germany, Trump would instead criticize them and criticize their leaders, and instead would talk about the strength of Xi and the honesty of Putin when Putin told him, "No, we didn't hack, sir. Why would we hack?" The theme was our typical allies were estranged, and our typical adversaries or regimes we would be more skeptical of or cautious of because of their anti-democratic tendencies and beliefs were being reviled by Trump and increasingly seen as, why don't we get along with whoever? Now, as many of you know, obviously, in a vacuum, it's great to get along with people. But at a certain point, you have to be able to assert and say, listen, we're willing to get along. We're willing to maintain peace. But when you make threats, when you are anti-free press, anti-democracy, anti-human rights, we can only get along so well. It's sort of like, excuse the crude analogy, but it's like when people come to me and they say, David, sir, do you have right-wing friends? And of course, I have many friends who are fiscally conservative and who believe that money is best spent by the individuals who earned it rather than by a government that has collected tax money. That's a philosophical disagreement. It's not going to cause an interpersonal problem. But on the other hand, if you believe that Jews are scum, then that's not going to be a situation where I go, listen, we just have a difference of opinion. You believe Jews are scum. I happen to be Jewish and don't believe that Jews are scum. At a certain point, we can't just do this, but it's great to get along with people. Why is that so bad? And that's much of what was troubling about what we saw under Trump. Okay, cut to this week. We now have, in a major foreign policy speech, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer warning Donald Trump and saying, we are not going to be put in a position where, as you antagonize the EU, the UK is expected to side with the United States over the European Union. Here is Keir Starmer himself directly going at the provocations of Trump, which are antagonistic of the EU, antagonistic of NATO, antagonistic of the concept of global agreements and partnerships. Take a listen.
So I want to be clear at the outset, against the backdrop of these dangerous times, the idea that we must choose between our allies, that somehow we're with either America or Europe, is plain wrong. I reject it utterly. Attlee did not choose between allies. Churchill did not choose. The national interest demands that we work with both. So I want to be...
So listen, Donald Trump has made it clear he doesn't like the EU. He doesn't respect the EU. More superficially, for a while now, the American right wing has had this perspective on Europe that they're sort of sissies over there. The men aren't really men and they just are very beta over there. So we know that Trump's coming in with this attitude towards the EU. And Trump's track record has confirmed that he is not shy about using a trade war, pulling support for allies, saying we wouldn't come to the shared defense of NATO allies unless they start putting in the amount of money that Trump says he believes they should put in. So what happens when Trump forces a choice where it's, are you with us or are you with the EU to the United Kingdom? And it's not really a hypothetical, because analysts are already warning that Trump's tariff ideas about putting tariffs on European goods, pressuring distance from China, these are already things that Donald Trump is setting up to do. The other area where are you with the EU or are you with us or are you with them? The other area where it's almost certainly going to come up is with regard to Ukraine. For Keir Starmer, backing Ukraine is a non-negotiable. Starmer believes, whatever you believe, Starmer believes that for stability, for freedom in Europe, for security in Europe, Ukraine needs to be supported. Joe Biden believes the same thing. Trump doesn't seem to believe that. So what is going to happen when Trump gets in? What is Trump going to do? The rhetoric from Trump is, oh, the Trump administration is going to scale back support from Ukraine. That's going to put the UK in a difficult spot. Are they going to stick to their principle, which is we believe that defense of Ukraine is important for Europe and thus for the UK? Or are they going to bow to Trump's demands? Certainly from what Keir Starmer is saying, they are not going to bow to Donald Trump's demands. But of course, it's one thing to say it. It's another thing to actually stand firm when Donald Trump starts the flexing. And so it's fascinating to see the British Prime Minister with this tough talk. It's also a question of what happens when Trump is not playing nice. And history tells us that this is potentially dangerous waters for the UK. These vague reassurances from Starmer, do we believe them? I don't really know. But what is going to happen with these American alliances if and when Trump comes in and, as he did last time, simply doesn't respect a damn thing about what the U.S. has previously committed to, engaged in historical alliances and the like? From a foreign policy perspective, potentially a very disastrous Trump term coming up. We focus really more domestically on this program, but it's important to consider what's happening globally, and it doesn't look like it's pointing in a particularly diplomatically friendly direction. For the gentlemen in my audience, you've probably been wearing the same type of underwear for years. The sticking and rubbing that you get with the traditional underwear is just a part of your life, and you've accepted it as your fate, but it doesn't have to be if you consider Sheath Underwear. Our sponsor, Sheath Underwear, is uniquely designed with two special pouches in the front, keeping everything separate in their own compartment to give you extra confidence when you're out and about. These ergonomic pouches let you keep everything dry and cool, letting the air flow so you skip the sweating and the chafing that you've gotten with your regular underwear. I've seen so many people skeptical about Sheath at first, only to change their minds once they try it for the first time. As soon as you put these on, you realize what you've been missing out on all these years, a new level of ergonomic comfort and breathability you didn't even know was possible. Try it once before you make up your mind. Sheath is giving my audience 20% off with the code PACMAN. Go to sheathunderwear.com/PACMAN. The link is down below.